Hello everyone, this is Mitch for Garage Games. I'm creating a new video due to a conversation I was having with a user in our IRC channel. He's been using the new Tort2D MIT engine, and he is used to using our legacy technology where we had a level editor that would do a lot for you, where you just run it and add sprites into the level and add a behavior, save, and it's all done. But the MIT version of Tort2D does not have editors. Currently it's just an API with editors planned for the future. So while I was talking to him, trying to help him get through the idea of creating a level and what's a TAML file and what's a script object and how do you create behaviors, I decided that I should just create a video, a live demonstration of me modifying the DeathBallToy to kind of display what it's like to save a level, load a level, and have the behaviors all working. So this is completely unscripted, so you're going to hear a lot of uhs and ums, you're going to hear me tapping on the keyboard a lot, but hopefully the point will get across that it's still very easy to create a game by hand using Tort2D. You just have to become familiar with some of the function calls and get the terminology separated out. So I've already done this on my PC, and I'm recording on my Mac right now, and I have my notes, but I already have gone through this and have it working on my PC. So with that in mind, let's get started. First thing I'm going to do is I've gone to the Tort2D my clone. I've already checked it out and compiled it and everything. I need to edit my preferences.cs to be DeathBallToy, and this will just save me time when I'm closing it down and rerunning. I don't have to go through the sandbox. Inside of the repo, I'm going to go to Modules, DeathBallToy, version 1, and since I'm going to be saving out some levels to load later on, I'm going to create a new folder. I'm just going to call it levels, and this gives me a location where I'm going to use the TAML system to write out a scene. And this is how we persist. I have a scene, I do TAML write, I give it a file location and an object, and it'll persist it to the TAML format. And I'm going to use the levels folder to do this. So first thing I need to do is, if I run DeathBall right now, and I'm moving around, this is all handwritten in script. The creation of the scene, the adding of behaviors, the spawning soldiers, this is all done in script, and I want to change how that works. So if I need to save a level, the first thing I want to do is get rid of the auto spawning, because here, I'll show this to you again. If I were to persist this level right now, this TAML file, all of these soldiers and their location and everything else going on, that's only going to get saved, and I don't want that. I want the level to be empty and then start spawning when I load. So I'm going to disable that. And one of the first things I need to do is open up spawn area behavior.cs. That's located in scripts spawn area behavior right here. So I'm taking in a property for auto spawn, but I'm not actually using it at this time. So in the onBehavior add, I'm going to check that variable. So if this dot auto spawn, then start spawning. Now I need to make that change also in my main.cs. If I do a search for spawn area behavior, this is where I'm doing the DeathBallToy create spawn points. That's around line 298. I'm going to pass in false in the initialize, and you see here where's auto spawn is that false parameter, true or false. So if I run now, I should not have any soldiers. Nope, nothing there. Okay. So the next thing I want to do is I'm going to run this, and it's all clean and fresh. And I'm going to type out TAML write, and the name of the scene that's currently loaded is hard-coded to be sandbox scene. So I happen to know that after working with the sandbox. And then I need to provide it a path. So it's object and path. And I'm going to use our expando, which is a caret, to point to the DeathBallToy folder with the extension of levels, and then, or I'm going to name the subfolder levels, and then I'm going to name it mylevel.scene.table. Okay, so no errors. If I were to close out, go back to my folder, you see I've created levels. There it is. There's my scene. This is what a persisted scene looks like, and a lot of people refer to it as a level as well. I'm referring to it as a scene because that's the name of the root object. As you can see, it's got the name of sandbox scene, and I actually want to get rid of that. because later on it's going to get set automatically. So now I have my level. You see I've got my composite sprite for the backgrounds. I've got my borders. Here's the death ball that I created in script. And you'll notice this is the exact reason why I wanted to clear it out a little. Whatever the state of the scene was previously, that's what gets saved out. So if the death ball had been at position 60-60, that would have been saved out. Here I've got that template that I created. So overall what I'm getting at is we need to make some changes. So I need to find the spawn area behavior. And you'll see it's got auto spawn set to 0. I'm going to re-enable that, because when I read in this level and set it, I do want the spawning to start automatically. I only disabled it for the sake of persisting a clean level, or a clean scene. Okay. That's the first part of this edit. Now looking ahead, I should also look at what was being spawned. So if I look at the spawn area behavior, it's pointing to an object of 1275. That was the unique ID number for the soldier template when I created it in script, and then I assigned it. So let me pop back into this. Right here, spawn area behavior, initialize this.soldier template. But this.soldier template was created here. I created a sprite called soldier, and that is going to be an ID. Well, I can't make use of that. When this scene gets loaded, I can't guarantee that that soldier template would be 1275. I mean, it's further up here, deathball soldier. Its ID is not persisted. We generate that. To make this easier, I'm going to call it soldier template. This is the set name for this sprite. And I'm going to go and find every instance of 1275. I'm going to replace it with the name of the soldier template rather than its ID. Okay. Now that ensures that the spawn area will automatically start spawning and use the object soldier template, which is declared ahead of this, and it already has the takes damage, it has all that set up. And my death ball, also you'll notice, it's got all of its usual information. The behaviors I added in script are persisted as well as a collection. So here's the deals damage. It's got its ID, it's got a strength, delete on hit, and it's all in Tamil format. Alright, let's see. What do I need to do next? Right, so this level looks like it's good to go. I'm just going to minimize that for now. I'm going to keep my spawn area behavior change that I made, so if it is in auto spawn mode, which our scene is, then it'll start going, so that's good. Now I actually have to make quite a few changes to this main.cs. I need to load the level and not generate it dynamically, so I'm going to go up to my reset function. Sandbox scene.clear, we can keep that. The gravity, sure, why not? I'll force it to always have that. The view limit, we do want to keep. This is the part we need to get rid of, all these dynamic spawns. I'm going to use the comment block syntax so that none of that happens. Instead, I'm going to load in my scene. I'm going to say scene equals Tamil read relative to where I'm at, the levels, and what did I name that? My level.scene.tamil. Tamil will now read this in. It'll look at the top object. Let's pull that back up real quick. My top object is inside of here. It doesn't have a name or anything, so it'll just be an ID. But actually, you know what? While I'm in here, there is one change that I do need to make, and it'll make sense a little bit later on. But I need to set it up so that the deathball scene is a class. So I'm going to give it a class of deathball scene. Alright, I'll explain this in a little bit, but this is going to be crucial for collision. Okay? So I've read in my scene, and the next step would be to assign it to our sandbox window. And this is specific to sandbox. You are going to need to do, if you have your own project, you're going to have to do this yourself with your own scene window. Let me locate my sample script. Okay. Just in case I persisted a name, I'm going to set its name to nothing and do a check actually. If the scene was not read in, just return. We're not going to do anything. If the level's corrupted or if the scene's corrupted or anything inside there, the TAML file is bad, we're going to do nothing. If it's okay, we're going to set its name, and then I'm going to do set custom scene. And the reason for this is a sandbox function. This is not part of the DeathBallToy. Doing so will get rid of the original sandbox scene and take this loaded one and make it what we see on the screen. And there's a few other things we need to do in here. When that happens, this line of code is invalidated. So actually, the view limits need to be set down here. And another change I need to make is the mounting. I was doing that originally inside of a function down here, inside of spawn deathball. I'm going to move that up to my reset. There we go. Alright, so I've got my default settings for sandbox scene. I'm reading in a scene. If it's not valid, I quit. Otherwise, I set its name. I give it to the sandbox scene window. I re-enable my view limits and my mounting for it. Let's see. Just in case, I'm going to assign this to the toy. Instead of a standard local variable, I'm going to make this a property on my DeathBallToy. So I can, just so I have it in case I need to clear it out, which I think I'll want to do. So instead of just a local name, loaded scene, double check, triple check. Good, good, good. And the reason I want to do that is because up here, I'm going to delete it when the toy is destroyed and create the default scene that gets used by the rest of the toys. Okay, so take a minute and look at that. Really, really important is the fact that if I were to run this right now, most likely the collision is not going to work. Look at that. Loading things up and no death. This is the scene loaded from file with the behaviors, everything working except the collision. Now why is that? Collision gets handled. Let's see if I can find it real quick. Collision gets handled inside of modules, sandbox, scripts, scene.cs. If I open that up and I look for on collision, this is how we get collision inside of Tort2D. The scene will detect a collision between some objects and details, and then I wrote functions that would call handle collision or call on behaviors handle collision. This does not work because our loaded scene is not sandbox scene. Now if you remember, I made a change earlier. I'm going to, by the way, copy this whole thing. If you remember, I look at the top of this, I used class equals deathball scene inside of my scene TAML. I'm going to go down to my package. Very bottom. You'll see I have this package deathball package or DeathBallToy package. Yeah. I'm going to name this instead of sandbox scene on collision. It's going to be deathball scene. And now the collision will get handled unique to this DeathToy. I can change these names if I want. It would be handle deathball collision or call on behaviors deathball collision. This is now unique to my DeathBallToy, and I can have my own little collision routines and do anything I want. Just like I do with the on touch down and on touch up to control the deathball instead of the sandbox scene, the traditional touches being done. And I think just to be safe, rather than just constantly deactivating package when the toy is destroyed, I'm actually going to deactivate the package every time I reset, and instead of activating it inside of create, I'm going to create it every time I load up right here. Death, 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 death ball rolling. Alright, let me recap. I set my preferences so that I always have the DeathBallToy starting up. I modified the spawn area behavior on behavior add to disable spawning if auto spawn is set to false. I don't automatically start creating. I then called taml write inside the console, by the way, taml write sandbox scene, and then I gave it a path, and that persisted my scene. I then updated the scene ahead of time to re-enable auto spawning. I modified the spawn area behavior to point to a named object instead of an ID, and I gave the scene a class so that I could handle my custom collision routines. And then importantly, what you're probably most interested in is that rather than dynamically creating my scene in script, I used taml read, pointed to the taml file, and caught it as a loaded scene, and then I set that custom scene. Now if you're starting from scratch, let me just to make sure, go to that function, set custom scene. It'll check to see if the scene exists. You know, it's good to have additional sanity checking. It'll destroy the old scene. It'll set the name, but then it's going to call set scene to window. Once again, nice little sanity check. This is the key function: sandbox window set scene. This could easily just be a whatever the name of yours is, but this is a scene window, and it takes in set scene it takes in an object for set scene. And that's the core part of Tort2D. You have your canvas, which is basically your window. You add a scene window to it as a subcontrol, and then you set the scene to an actual scene object, and that's how this is all working. So when I call set custom scene, it goes through that whole routine. And then because it's resetting a lot with sandbox window, I just need to move this further down because I was doing this inside of my dynamic stuff, and that's what got it working. And then the collision working again, I had to add a unique one for the class on my written out scene to handle it. Now hopefully that was enough, and it's medium length video, and I know it's kind of long, maybe I'll split it up, but that is how you can modify an existing toy to use persisted levels rather than creating them dynamically through script. And as we get closer to, or as we're updating the engine, we're going to start adding a hello world or a really empty module so you can start from scratch. We'll add in more toys that have persisted levels to start with, so you can see how we're cleaning up and switching between levels. But it all comes down to just taml persistence. Anything can be persisted to taml. I can do a sprite, a scene, GUI control, a particle player, image assets. If it is derived from the sim object class in the source code, it can be persisted to a taml file. And the only thing I'm doing here is I'm using a naming convention for the extensions to help specify what I'm doing. A .scene.taml to specify this is a scene object saved to the script. Or saved to the file. So as I start with the video, we have an IRC channel. It's irc.maxgaming.net. The channel is #GarageGames, and usually if you see someone in there with the handle GG, that's usually myself or another Garage Games employee. And this all came about because I was talking to someone in real time and they were having trouble with this. So check out our IRC channel. Go into the forums and be sure to post in the Tort2D Beginner, or if you want something more advanced, the Tort2D Professional. I don't usually check my video comments that often, so the best way to get a hold of me with your additional questions is in IRC or in the forums, which is where I spend most of my time. So hopefully this video maybe clears some things up. I hope I didn't go too fast. Just rewind and pause and check this out. If you're interested in getting these scripts, just post in our Tort2D Beginner forum and I'll upload them for you. So thanks for taking the time to watch.